right, folks. Happy Thursday to you. It is 8:04 on Wave Extra. Jose Sosaya joined by none other than our sports anchor, Dusty Baker. And Dusty is getting quite a lot of time having to explain all of his knowledge and his insight. We'll touch on sort of Dusty offering his perspective to some West Coasters. And we're going to be, just poking a little fun because this is what college baseball does this time of year at our upcoming competition against Oregon State. Right. So, you're going to represent your hometown team as best as you can. So that's what our starting point is as you're joining us here on Wave Now and Wave Extra. I appreciate you joining us on your smart devices, on your tablets, your TVs. If you're joining us on all the different socials, appreciate you doing so. And if you love sports, we love to chat about that as well. Don't tell Dusty, don't threaten him with a good time as far as talking anything having to do with cards, baseball, and the story. And I'm so glad, Dusty, I got to tune in a little bit to sort of today's breakdown of what you'll be looking out for. And part of that will be the star pitching, how consistent and or mercurial that's going to be, but also perhaps we're talking two teams in this first game coming up tomorrow. Maybe they didn't think they'd get this far, but it's not like these programs don't have a history of getting to this stage. And so I'll cede the floor to you, my friend. Talk to me about kind of what you've got your eyes on as, game time is going to be pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 23 hours away now from the Cards taking the field against the Oregon State Beavers. And of course, Oregon State does have a program that has had excellence at not only just college baseball in general, but in Omaha. They've secured 3 national championships. They make it very clear that's a big deal for the program. And, UofL has an Omaha room. But apparently, I found out today, and I'm sure a lot of programs do have this, but found out that Oregon State also has an Omaha room. And of course, that room is holding those 3 trophies. So Oregon State is a team that has the brand, has definitely maybe sunk under the radar a little bit because of all the conference shifting. And for those of you that don't know, the Oregon State Beavers are part of the Pac-2. I said that correctly. They are one of the 2 teams in the Pac-12 conference, the other being Washington State. And of course, the Pac-12 will expand here soon, having the likes of Boise State.
That's right.
And, you go through the list, Colorado State's one. I mean, there are teams, schools that are going in there. Fresno State, I believe, is another. So the conference is going to kind of gain some strength again. But for now, it's Pac-2. So it's very strange.
Oregon State and Washington State, the proud lone 2 schools still standing. And talk about, especially in a Pac-12 brand that has been as strong as we know. And you're a West Coast guy, Dusty. The Pac-12 has some staying power.
Yeah, it does. I mean, even just the name Pac-12, the value within, I mean, that organization still has funds to work with. And so Oregon State is one of those schools that's keeping the brand alive. And how about this run, Jose, just being able to have the success that they've had down the stretch here? And, I was doing a little bit of digging going into this particular matchup. There's not a lot of similarities with these teams as far as who they've crossed over with and whatnot. But one common opponent that kind of stood out to me was Florida State, simply because Oregon State had to beat Florida State to get to this point. Louisville played Florida State back in the final week of April, and in a 3-game stretch, they won 2 out of 3 against that team, and it was a high-scoring affair. We saw very similar results against an FSU team for Oregon State on their home turf. So you just look at from a matchup standpoint, it feels like these 2 teams kind of had similar success against a very similar opponent, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it all changes when it's all on the line, especially now in the College World Series. And the Cards today had the chance to practice in the stadium that they will be playing in, which is the Charles Schwab Field. This is interesting, Jose, because for me, I like to call this the new stadium, but the reality is it's now been around since 2011.
And if you've been around long enough to remember Rosenblatt, for those of us who do remember that, and then this became TD Ameritrade. Full disclosure, folks, if you're tuning in, kind of my path has been, working in Omaha and appreciating just how important not only this event is to the city, but to college fans everywhere.
Yeah. And
pilgrimage of sorts.
For you to be able to have experienced that, I mean, that had to have been a special opportunity for you to understand what it means to the people of Omaha and the impact this makes. We have our Kentucky Derby out here. This is kind of their version of the Kentucky Derby, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What makes it that way, Jose? Because, these are 8 different teams that have nothing to do with Creighton, which is where,
neither Creighton nor Nebraska, but
right.
it's almost I don't know, it's almost, I'd call it the roster of how unique the makeup of the final 8 teams always is. Every single year, it is never a guarantee you're going to get the same 8 programs. Baseball is not a game like football. The randomness of it all, if you love the sport, it's baked into the cake, as opposed to perhaps you think the college football playoff, when a program has built stability, there's generally not a lot to second guess from the Bamas or the Ohio States,
the Georgias
of the world.
The
That once you're there, once you're there, you generally don't either give up the ground or you generally will make it to, I don't know, maybe the semifinals. And look at Louisville's path, how long it's taken them to get back to the stage, right? Dusty, 2019. That's a 6-year drought
for a program that expects to be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So that's really special that you had the chance to experience that. Have you been to games out there before?
It was the secret or not so secret thing is, generally you want to go see how things play out in the early games. If you don't have a horse in the race, and I'm tying that into our special pilgrimage here in Louisville. But if you generally don't have a team, it's almost just like fun to see how the different fan bases are out there enjoying themselves in the village, in the stands. It could be hot, it could be cooler than you might think, and so generally it's about a vibe and an experience. I'd argue people, there's a fan base, we can talk about them later, Dusty, that this time around they are coming back to Omaha. It's the LSU Tigers fan base. So again, a history, but for some reason in the years I was working there as a fandom, even those years they did not qualify to the final 8. For some reason, it just became a heck of a tailgate.
Yeah.
Go have fun. Yeah. Go walk down the streets. Go talk shop. Go talk baseball. Go to Rocco's. Have a beer. I don't know. It's just go prep some burgers or whatever around and enjoy yourself. It becomes kind of an early summer vacation.
Yeah, I'm proud to announce too. We just got an update. Now this regularly changes, so I apologize because there's no way this is accurate at this point as far as the exact number, but Louisville is second right now in the Rocco's Jello Shot Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
They are just behind, guess who?
It would be LSU.
No, you'd be surprised.
Okay, so am I going with the other?
I thought that's what it was going to be.
Am I going with the other Kentucky team?
You have to go with the other Kentucky team. Murray State is first place right now, and Louisville is in second place in the Jello Shot Challenge
Look at them showing up.
I did not see that coming because, as you mentioned, LSU shows up in big ways. For those of you that don't know at home, that is just a fun little challenge where Rocco's, the bar, does $5 Jello shots, and they have a list of 8 schools that are on their feed, on their board, and they have you come up to the front, come up to the bar, and if you order one on behalf of the team, you get a number down, right? And so that's what they do, and they contribute a portion of those funds to charity. And so it's of course for a good cause. But for Rocco's Jello Shot Challenge to do that, they were able to raise a significant number, Jose.
I know. I'm trying to scramble to find if they've been posting anything lately, at least on the CWS official Jello Shot Challenge. All I'm finding is post updates from 2024. If I honestly, just so everybody at home can see what I'm trying to find really quick, I'll cut to this. That's what I can see. I cannot find another account for, if there's been anything from 2025, but you see here.
Look at that contribution.
What was the total?
It was $145,000.
That was last year.
Yeah. And that's contributing. If you scroll down just a little there, you'll see even up a little bit. Yeah. At the post itself, they were fortunate enough to raise $145,477 last year to combat food insecurity. So that is pretty cool that they're able to do something like that. So if you're heading out to Omaha, you have the chance to represent either the Cards or Murray State, or if you have your alma mater out there, then you have the chance to do that as well and represent. But, this goes to a deeper point that, as we were touching on, there is a pageantry about college sports as you get higher and higher into the bowl season in football and college basketball. There's the pageantry of the Final Four. For college baseball, obviously, it's the concept of Omaha, right? And so the Cards are experiencing that pageantry, and today they had their team picture, then they had the practice, as you saw right there. But also, I had a chance to sit down and talk for a little bit with the Portland TV station, Fox 12. And, I gave them some insight regarding what U of L brings to the table and what they can expect for game one. And so they returned the favor as well. So Nick Krupke had the chance to bring up a few points about what makes Oregon State such a difficult team to face.
All right, let's set up Nick Krupke here for his breakdown, which is when we got to build up and sauce up our team, he's going to represent, and it lets us get a little more insight into what Oregon State's all about. And of course, I love to learn about this stuff. So let's hear what Nick Krupke has to say from Fox 12.
Beavers, they are where they thrive the most here in June, back in Omaha, having won now 5 games on the brink, right? They had to win 4 elimination games in that regional round. Of course, they were at home after losing that first one to St. Mary's. Part of that was they didn't play a game for about 2 weeks because, of course, they're not in a conference anymore. So there was no Pac-12 tournament to go to in Arizona. There was no Big Ten to be invited to, any of those natures. This, as an 8th seed, they've earned every bit of their chances to be here, and then to take down Florida State like they did on Sunday. Again, you talk about draft picks. Well, that Jamie Arnold's going to be like a top 5 pick, they said, and the Beavs went ahead and knocked him out of there in that first inning. They had 7 runs, 5 home runs in the first 4 innings, which is a program record in the postseason. And, Greg, that the Beavs have been in the postseason quite a lot. This is an 8th trip to the World Series. First one for head coach Mitch Canham. He won 2 titles, and they were there in 06 and 07, also played there in 05 before they got those back-to-back national titles. Nobody on this team has played in Omaha before. Of course, they won it all back in 2018 with that incredible group of guys like Trevor Larnach and Adley Rutschman, all the gang. This is where they're supposed to be this time of year. And if all the time this is their 8th time in the World Series, this one probably means more than any of them ever before. Just being that barnstorming independent club where they played more games on the road than they did at home, where they have such an incredible home field advantage that we just saw last weekend against Florida State as well. This is pretty important, and especially for the university, it's really been left behind athletically, just like my Cougs, to have a rallying point, to have everybody, as you mentioned it, not everybody's into baseball. We are. Dusty is. I am. People like Greg aren't, but right now you are a big-time baseball fan.
Yes.
And everybody, not just from the orange and black, but everybody around the state, even some Duck fans too, they can admit it, to see what the Beavers have been through, what they've come out of, and who knows still what the future looks like, that they're able to represent. They're wearing the Pac-12 logo, but it doesn't mean they're a Pac-12 team. We'll see who has come into place in baseball down the road, but this is a pretty neat moment for them. And then they get Louisville in game 1 at a perfect time on a Friday at 4 o'clock Pacific time. Check on out of work and find a TV.
Some old habits die hard. Thanks to Nick out there in Portland. Even Oregon Duck fans, I find that a hard concept to grasp if they're willing to root on for the Beavers. Because in theory, you want your school. There's that alma mater pride at play here. But I don't know. It's, again, when sometimes a sport in college baseball like this can feel very regional, and then you're discovering some teams you'd never never followed their regular season journeys up until this point. But you mentioned, and I heard you and Nick talk about this, Coach Canham, his pedigree, getting these guys back here. So it feels like, the Cards and the Beavers are of the same ilk in mentality and wanting to prove that they do belong on this stage.
Yeah. And I think the Cards may have a bit of a chip on their shoulder, because the difference between what you see from Oregon State and U of L, just from a visual standpoint, is you're going to see the number 8 next to Oregon State. They were a host. They were one of the national seeds. The Cards were not. And, they had mentioned, and you and I have talked about this before, that there was a chip on their shoulder because of how they were treated and viewed last year, based off the way the committee had viewed the ACC and how they feel like their competition was kind of looked down upon when the SEC gets a lot of the hype. And then, Oregon State probably feels that way, considering they are in the Pac-2, as I mentioned, right? The Pac-12 of 2. And so, Nick touched on that a little bit, which is that there's something to prove this time around. And the conference realignment has just been so chaotic that, these schools that have played with the big boys and been with the big boys, all of a sudden, somehow they take a step back out of nowhere, out of their control. And so it's going to be interesting, because it's kind of 2 different mindsets, but as you mentioned, similar chip on the shoulder of need to prove they belong, and a pride aspect, I think, is part of it too. And so I'm just curious to see how this plays out. I do think that on the Cards side, this was the tough draw as far as U of L going up against either Oregon State, Coastal Carolina, or Arizona. And it's no disrespect to either of the other two programs, because guess what? Arizona and Coastal Carolina, that was quite literally a College World Series matchup at,
Absolutely.
I believe it was 2019. Maybe it was the year. It's hard to think back.
That feels familiar.
I'm going to have to dig that back up. But I actually had two friends that were on Arizona's team that year. So this may actually have gone a little further back, maybe 2018. But either way, you look at where these programs are. I mean, this wasn't an easy draw, and there's no such thing as an easy draw when you're in the final 8, right? So, you got to win games against good teams. That's just how this thing works out. Some people were talking about how should we reseed? No, like play the games the way they're supposed to, play it accordingly. The Cards had to face the number 1 team in the country, and they took them down on their home turf, right? So, that's something to think about, is that I think the Cards have been battle tested. Miami was a tough team. Oregon State is not going to lay down, right? And they had not laid down. They did not lay down to Florida State. It's going to be tough. I mean, you at this point in time, it's really hard to predict how this thing goes down. But what I can say is we do know who will be on the hill for the Cards game 1, and that will be Patrick Forbes, who is hoping to be an early draft pick here in the upcoming MLB draft.
A certain prospect who you hold in pretty high regard, and if the right team or the right team at the right position is going to say, let's add this kid into the system, he could be a linchpin in a rotation one day.
Yes, he's got put away stuff, and I think that's the big key for him here. Oregon State puts up a lot of runs, right? That's one of the strengths for that team. So is what the Cards offense does. I mean, they put up a lot of runs as well. Forbes is going to have to go out there and do what he does best, which is strike guys out, because this season alone, he's had 107 strikeouts in 66 innings. For those of you that don't know how significant that is, K per nines, which means strikeout per 9 inning. Usually if you're hovering around 9 per game, right? Like you're averaging 9 per game, 1 per inning. That is pretty standard, strong. That means you could strike guys out, put guys away. This K per 9 is insane, man, because he's putting away essentially 2 batters per inning. And you don't see that where it's closer to an 18 K per 9 than a 9. That blows my mind. And so, Forbes does have some control issues. We saw it in his most recent start against Miami that he did walk 4 batters, but he also struck out 9 in 5 2/3 innings and allowed only 1 run and allowed 4 hits. So you're talking about a pitcher that was able to get out of multiple jams. He had the stuff to put guys away. And
it also helps when you have a team that puts up 8 runs in that game. So what you want is the perfect matching of shut down pitching.
Right.
Don't let up more than a run. Ideally, any pitcher would love to go a scoreless game.
Yeah.
But when you get a 7-run cushion, Dusty, when you get a 7-run cushion, you feel like, okay, I'm not going to coast.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have the ultimate insurance.
Right.
So let's say I walk a guy to have started that half inning, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Which speaks to your point about Forbes, where it's just like, if he finds himself in that groove, it's hard to break him out of it. But if it could just be that one little wrench, the monkey wrench gets thrown in there.
Yep.
You hope he can find his center back.
He has his stuff. He has to execute, right? Like you said, I mean, he has to kind of let the adrenaline waver. I'm very curious to watch him in the first inning because that is the all-time blow it up inning. I think in college baseball, you can't win a game in the first inning, but you can certainly lose it in the first inning.
And I want to point out, how many runs right here did Oregon State score in that last game against Florida State?
Yeah.
7-run in the first inning.
Yeah. And what was the final score of that game? It was 14-10. I mean, these are slugfests. And so, back to your point about how these teams are kind of similar in certain ways. I mean, both really rely heavily on the offense to carry them. And it's interesting because the Cards during this postseason, it feels like there was more balance there. But the reality of this team from a much larger sample size is this team scores run and just tries to have enough pitching to make it. They were blessed with having beyond enough pitching to have clutch guys stepping up out of the bullpen, starting rotation, Everly coming in and doing what he did. Forbes being able to shut it down when he needed to. I mean, that was a luxury that I don't think the Cards expected to have. They pretty much went into this postseason expecting to slug. But McDonald has told me, and he says this numerous times, that he wants his best pitching, obviously, in the postseason, and that this doesn't surprise him at all that his team has been pitching this way. So, when you do have a prospect that is going to probably be a top 40 pick, and depending on what compensation picks look like, that could very well mean a first-round pick. Patrick Forbes is the guy that you want towing the rubber. And so I'm very curious to see how that goes down. But the Cards, Cards fans don't jump the gun. Let me tell you, do not jump the gun, because while I could see the Cards winning this game tomorrow, that is a tough Oregon State team. And there's going to be no bias aside here, because that lineup is lethal. They have 3 hitters hitting over 1,000 with the OPS. You're talking about Arquette. You're talking about Gavin Turley, who's really the main key piece, the cog in that lineup. Mm-hmm. And then you also have Martin Serrano. So that trio right there, plus Wilson Weber is also really talented. And I've watched a little bit of him as well.
Just barely under that 1,000 OPS, but functionally that still means it's high efficiency at that point.
Yes, and they hit for power. They've got multiple guys in double digits that hit for power, but so do the Cards, right? The Cards hit for power too. So the long ball is always intriguing to watch in Omaha, because that stadium is slightly bigger than what you would see from a standard college
dimensions now. And this opens the age-old discussion. If you love major league play, and every team decides to set their different distances for left, center, right field to mash one out. So which one's a pitcher's park and which one's a hitter's park?
Right.
I don't know, man. From what I remember, it's not a guarantee to be a hitter's park out there in Omaha, Dusty. It's not a guarantee.
Ball seems to fly a lot more to left center, is kind of what I've seen over the years. Whenever I think of long balls in Omaha, I'm going to pick up one of your boys here out of Florida, Wyatt Langford.
Yes.
He was an absolute machine out there. And so he would torch that bullpen in left center field, right? That is the kind of player that I think about that thrives in this scenario. And so for a guy on the Cards that kind of maybe fits the mold of, Eddie King Jr. is not necessarily that. He shoots the gap, right?
Sure.
Like he hits home runs, but I'm thinking about Jake Monroe, because
I was looking at his stats too to see if he can. And we saw how that played out at Jim Patterson Stadium. Again, different dimensions, different weather. But you saw where the contact was coming, where he just makes, reads that pitch just right. Where does that thing sail? Left center field.
Left center field. Jake Monroe is like the prototypical right-handed pull guy that just makes sense for that ballpark. And the guy comes up clutch too. And hey, guess what? This is not profound, because he's also hitting over 1,000 in the OPS category. And guess who the other one is? It's Eddie King Jr. You have success across the board. Matt Klein is going to be an interesting player to watch here, because I think he's going to need to step up for clutch hitting. The guy that I really think is going to make or break it for this lineup is Tage Davis. I think Tage Davis, he's struggled a little bit this postseason, hasn't really had his moment yet. He's just a freshman. He also broke the UofL freshman home run record with 18 home runs this season. I'm just waiting for when he gets a hold of one and that thing goes like 20 rows up, because that's the kind of player he is. He has the impact to be able to change the game with one swing of the bat. He did make some impact plays on defense, notably that double play that was a comebacker to Jacob Schweitzer, and then he throws it to home. Home goes to first, and Tage is there, outstretched, makes a great, I would say, he practically made the splits like while he was doing that.
That is the equivalent of, I told you yesterday, where it's like, in another life, Tage was a gymnast.
Yes, he was.
That's a flexibility that you can't just summon that out of thin air. Right. You had to have stretched massively and get your body ready for that when the time comes.
Right. And he certainly did. And I just think that his bat is going to be so crucial in this, because they need one more bat that has the pop that can come up clutch. And you kind of expect at this point that guys like Zion Rose are going to produce. That's a name that I hadn't said yet, but Zion Rose, Lucas Moore, those are the kind of guys that step up in a big way. That Alex Alise is going to play great defense. I think I'm intrigued by the second base play as well, because Byram Hott came up clutch for them. And so I'm just intrigued by the team as a whole.
And thinking, he had replaced Neighbors in that third game to clinch the Super Regional.
Kamayo Neighbors was, he made a mistake on the bases. Next day, you see that Neighbors sits and Hott comes in, and Hott, while it was not maybe how they drew it up, he beat out a grounder that could have been an ending double play, and instead cashed in the tying run, kept them in the game before Eddie King Jr. ultimately helped them take the lead with an RBI double that gave them the 3-2 victory. I mean, Eddie King Jr. remained to be the guy that they needed to count on, and rightfully so, right? I mean, his numbers are insane, and like a slugging percentage of 770 is just insane, man.
I was looking at that right there too.
It's insane. I mean, this guy is a freak of nature, and I think it's so cool that finally people are talking about him. Eddie King Jr., there he is right there as we speak, number 42. I mean, he is a normal, kind, humble player, but Eddie right there, as you can see, I mean, he's built to be a baseball player and has a pure swing, clutch, and he delivers almost every time he steps up to the plate, man. So I'm very intrigued to watch this lineup step up in a big way, but it's going to be a tough one tomorrow. Oregon State's a tough team, guys, and at this point, you just hope that your team can come up clutch when they need to the most. Don't leave runners on base. You need timely hitting. You need pitching that can shut it down and limit the damage. I mean, that's the prototypical coach speak that you're going to hear throughout the week is limit the damage, timely hitting, no left on base, and field cleanly. I mean, like, you want to play great defense, and good pitching gets you a victory. So it all comes back down to the fundamentals of baseball that leads to teams winning at the end of the day.
You don't want to feel like the guy who had forgotten, sort of that stuff that's just written in your muscle memory at that point, especially when you are on a stage like that and the crowd is going to get so into it, the pressure, it will keep building and building in that pot, like just steaming up to that point. And so you're hoping, Coach McDonald's words just live in their ears the entire time, Dusty, where it's just like, what you do. Yeah. You know what you do best. Yeah. We know our identity. Telling Patrick Forbes, go strike them out. Yep. Defense, be ready for whenever there's contact, get the ball gets in play. And guess what? At the top of the heart of the order, just keep moving. Yep. Be patient. Keep moving.
Be patient. Yep. And for Forbes, just locate. I mean, easier said than done. When you're on a stage like that, and let's be honest,
and the national cameras are on you this time.
The adrenaline will be rushing you. That's why I said I keep an eye on the first inning, because the first inning can be real interesting with Forbes as far as how he locates. If he has a 1-2-3 inning, oh boy, Cards fans can lick their chops, because then he's feeling it, right? But the moment he gets in trouble in the first inning and he gets wild or walks numerous guys, hits batters, that's when I get a little bit more nervous, because this is a pretty deep lineup that Oregon State features, and they will punish you if you make a mistake pitch or if you let guys get on base. So the last thing Cards fans need to see is for Forbes to have a walk to open the game. I'd rather give up a base knock. It's more of a confidence knock to your confidence, I should say, if you walk the opening guy, and Forbes is going to need to locate his pitches, because his pitches are very, very effective, and he needs to trust his stuff, because that's why he struck out 107 batters this year. He has pure MLB talent, and he just needs to trust that him locating his stuff in the right spots, that's where Oregon State won't hurt him. That's going to be a story of the game, in my opinion. I think that if he can limit the damage early on, I think the Cards will be able to put up enough offense to win. I'll give you a number.
Let's go. Give me that number.
We'll see how accurate I am on this. I think the determining number to win this game, the number 7. If you can score 7 runs, and if Forbes can strike out 7, I think that's going to be the key number. I think Oregon State, regardless of who they face after Forbes, I think they're going to find a way to get at least scratch a couple of runs across the board. But you limit them to 6. Cards get 7 runs, I think they win it. I think that's your magic number.
And your magic number with the strikeouts that he had gotten in that last game against Miami, he got the 9.
Yes.
He can get you nine strikeouts, 9 Ks easy.
Yeah.
So
if he goes 7 innings, that's the greatest 7 that you could probably get out of all those that I listed.
And that shows you, and then that shows you that he'd earned that right. And, his pitch count doesn't get blasted through the roof with just, wild pitches or just stuff outside the zone. So just like it almost like, imagine what you could do for the team. It's like saying, give him 7 solid innings, at least 7 strikeouts. What if they go and get 7 runs?
Right.
At least.
Right. And how many home runs has he allowed this season in total? Do you know?
We can look that up if we pull up.
It looks
stats.
looks like we have it right there. Actually, I think so we have what's really cool about this room that we do this in is we can pull up stats while we speak, because sometimes we have them memorized, but
and
it's
just buy ourselves a little time.
Yeah, it's hard to remember that exactly. So some of those numbers, I think if you go back based off the feed, you might be able to. If you actually press the back button, you might be able to. Let's take a look, because
it's the beauty of the live stuff.
It's the beauty of live show.
Okay,
right?
So let's go back to pitching over the whole season.
There you go, HR right over there.
HR 7 home runs allowed in. Well, these are, let's see, in the 66 innings and only 6 decisions on his games.
Yeah.
So
he that number 7 is going to be clutch, man. That's important. Don't allow the home run ball. He doesn't do that often. 7 home runs in 66 innings is pretty dang good, if you ask me. And
hitters only really getting a 210 average off him.
Right. And that's the other thing. So it's when Forbes gives up runs, it's because he's giving guys free bases, right? He's giving them free bags. The difference between that long ball at 7, we mentioned, you had a strikeout to walk ratio. He's walked 33 guys and he struck out 107. That's an incredible strikeout to walk ratio. With that being said, though,
those walks did him no service.
Yes, they punished him big time. So 33 walks, 32 earned runs. The numbers
his
speak
average
for themselves.
and you see the average. It's like no pitcher really wants to have to live in that zone of 4.4 ERA.
Yeah, exactly. So he has the stuff to be able to get done. Patrick Forbes locates. Cards, I think, have a pretty good chance.
All right, Dusty, remind folks where they can tune in, because I think Card Nation, undoubtedly is going to be tuning into the game, but just remind them channel time, because we're going to be watching alongside with them as well.
Yes, we will. Yeah, ESPN covers the College World Series from this point on, start to finish. So they will be playing at 7:00 Eastern time. If you happen to be a Cards fan on the West Coast, then 4:00 is your time, and you do the math if you're anywhere else in the country. But I will say it is a really awesome situation for them, because they'll be the first night game of the College World Series this time around. So that'll be an exciting atmosphere. You're going to probably get fans from the previous game of the day
hanging around.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really cool thing. And that should be Arizona, Coastal Carolina fans that, will be scouting out their opponent that night, because one of those teams will win, the other will lose. And regardless, they will face the winner and or loser of the U of L Oregon State game.
Elimination works.
Yeah. So they're going to watch them because they want to know who they're playing the next go round, because double elimination, you don't want to be the first one knocked out in this thing, right?
No.
It's a fun trip for all, but I would say 2 programs don't enjoy this trip, because they will be 0-2 by the end of it. And for Cards fans, for Murray State fans, they don't want that to happen. I will say, because we've talked all about the Cards, what a run it's been for Murray State too. To be able to go up against UCLA, it's going to be tricky on Saturday. But that lineup has been so effective, right? They've been so effective this whole entire postseason. They've shown that they belong. They had the chance also to get their practice in. We're going to hear from Murray State tonight at 11 on top of what we're hearing from the Cards. And we'll hear from the players from U of L. We'll hear from the head coach who cuts his own grass at Murray State. I think that's been a popular topic, is that Murray State's field it's a pretty field. It's a very nice field.
Intimate is the word I was going to say. And intimate, perhaps leaning into the whole, whoever gets a seat here, you get the space.
Yes.
But it is a small little field.
I think based off this run, it would be hard for me not to predict that more seats will be put into that stadium this offseason. I feel like that was
a little extension on the bleachers.
Maybe that would be maybe we're making Murray State baseball become a thing at this point.
I like that idea. All right, when we see you tonight at 11, Dusty, you're also going to have a really heartwarming story for us, because sometimes it's as fun to watch the players accomplish so many things, but when you understand what a program, a club, a brand, a franchise means to the people, the communities who wrap their arms around them, and especially with kiddos, the kiddos obviously, they might learn that there's a hometown bias from mom or dad,
right?
Because mom or dad are going to educate them on what's going on. But if they happen to find that player, if they're old enough to make that connection, that moment of athletic performance,
right.
And I think you're going to introduce us to one special fan who not only has, have they found a team to root for in the guys. The guys, I think, are well aware of a pretty special fan here.
Yeah, Knox was diagnosed with a rare brain tumor, and 6-year-old Knox. And man, ball full of energy, man. I had the chance to interview him and his parents. Just a really, as you mentioned, special kid. A lot of energy. You would never know by looking at him that he's been having to go through so much treatment and all these struggles, these difficulties at such a young age. And U of L has done a great job at embracing him and making him feel like he's a part of the team. I even asked him, are you a player on this team? And he said yes, right? So that's really special. And so we're going to get a little glimpse into what Knox views him as himself as far as being a member of the team, but also Knox's journey and how U of L baseball has played a role in making that journey maybe a little less difficult, right? Adding a little bit of excitement through what has been a lot of struggles, a lot of lows, and then U of L baseball has had an impact on him to the point where his parents were unbelievably grateful, and a couple of just diehard Cards fans right there, as you mentioned, and Knox is just the perfect fit for this family and for U of L. It's like he has two families: his personal family, and then U of L. It's like Dan McDonald is taking him under his wing. So we're going to hear from Knox. A lot of energy with that kid. It really special family, and Knox Shepard, and we'll catch up with him tonight at 11.
Looking forward to that, and I'm sure for as many smiles as the players and Coach McDonald have put on his face and his family's face, if you're describing the infectious energy with which he talked to you and everyone out there, I think the guys in the dugout, I think will be thinking if they need a little pick me up. All it will take is like, okay,
look. It's a
go
look.
be like Knox.
Yeah, go be like Knox. Like when the door knocks, you attack, right? Like that's how you do it, right?
That's
like,
a nice motto.
Yeah,
I like that there.
Yeah, I didn't think about it too much. So that's what we do. This is live streaming, as we like to call it. So, but yeah, it should be really exciting. That'll be on at 11. We'll talk about Murray State, and we'll also talk about the new UK to U of L hire that is no longer a secret.
No, all right, football fans. Let's you'll be hoping Vince Marrow comes with the goods to recruit the talent that I'm sure Cardinal football would like to bring to campus.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and we'll kind of preview what he's going to bring to the table here for U of L, and of course what he was able to do at UK. But yes, recruiting is his MO, and he is going to be what seems like a pretty impactful man in that system. So interesting when you go from blue to red, and I know a lot of Cats fans, I'm sure, love that this is happening.
Just with raised eyebrows as soon as you're saying that. It's just like, this is how special. How good for you.
What a great opportunity.
Great for you. It's one of those
That's really nice.
I can picture some people, if they're trying to through gritted teeth doing the whole bless your heart thing.
Oh, bless your heart.
Yeah. If you learned that one growing up, it's just like, oh boy. But hey, we'll wish him the best of luck. All right.
Yeah.
Don't miss out. Dusty got a busy night too, but we're going to check back in with him at 11. So don't forget to, come check in with us at Wave News at 11 on your regular scheduled broadcast.
Yeah. Can't wait to catch us at 11, of course. And, get ready for what is an insanely busy and exciting and probably will be dramatic weekend. Can't forget that you have all these other things happening, like the NBA Finals and the LFA. Jose. We have our work cut out for us, but it's good. It's not a problem.
No, not at all.
I'm fine. I'm totally fine. It's totally fine.
Just let me hydrate as we can.
Totally fine. Everything is okay.
It just takes hydration and patience and a couple breaks here and there if we can get them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, folks. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Our thanks to Dusty Baker, who you're going to catch at 11 tonight. We're going to have a little more breakdown of some other stories, things you can expect to tune into tonight, and some interesting headlines that came across our newsroom. So stick around. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. 8:45, but time flies by when you're checking in with us on Wave Extra. Dusty Baker, Dusty and I, like you saw, we could talk college baseball for a long time. It is the big story on our minds as we're getting closer to that first game for Louisville in the College World Series against Oregon State. By the way, if you wanted to catch Dusty's full conversation with the team out in Portland, as they're the ones following Oregon State, Fox 12, our partners out there, we're going to have that up on wave3.com. Way more options to make sure we get you the latest coverage that we're able to get as we see that game also play out. So now we're just going to touch on a couple of stories that came across the newsroom desk. I just wanted to run those by you, and we'll have some more interesting headlines as we wrap up the hour. But first, we do know about an interesting story for long-time Louisvillians. If there's a name of the former police chief, Jacqueline Gwynn-Villarreal. Just a story here is an update. Apparently, a man is suing several LMPD officers, the ex-chief, the current mayor in Metro, claiming he was unlawfully detained and assaulted, and now suing for not just that, but false arrest, excessive force, racial discrimination. So our thanks to our Wave News reporter, Fernando Garcia Francescini. He took a closer look at where this all happened and, of course, at the filing itself. So we're going to play this report from Fernando Garcia Francescini. So we'll play that as we go right here.
Thomas Sanders says he remembers vividly what he saw when he showed up at this liquor store on May 28th, 2024.
When I pulled up, it was multiple police cars over in the lot.
Police body cam video shows Sanders asking an LMPD officer why he's being kicked off of a sidewalk since it's public.
Sidewalks are for walking. I agree with you 90%.
After a long back and forth, an officer tells Sanders he'll be cited if he doesn't leave the sidewalk.
Man, give me a citation, man.
All right, come here, give me your ID.
And it's after that when we can see the officers trying to detain Sanders. And eventually they tackle him to the ground.
Still in pain. It's hard for me to use my left arm. I can't even lift it over my truck.
Sanders was issued a citation for loitering, resisting arrest, menacing, and criminal mischief. The lawsuit states this all started with an order from Mayor Greenberg to then Police Chief Gwynn-Villarreal to send officers to, quote, clean up and remove people hanging around the area prior to a public event where the mayor was speaking.
My client was not playing dominoes, was not gambling, was not intoxicated. Am I correct? Yes. As you can see, this is a public sidewalk.
Sanders says he hopes him suing LMPD and the Metro will prevent other Black men from going through what he experienced.
Again, our thanks to Fernando Garcia Francescini for that one report. We'll, of course, see how the litigation plays out in court from there. Now, another story of interest, our thanks to David Mattingly looking into this, and, of course, the unique appreciation for Kentucky Derby and what horse racing means, not just to Louisville, but to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So it's a marriage of a pretty traditional sport and AI, artificial intelligence. Apparently, there's a program now helping prevent thoroughbreds from ever having, or at least as best as they can, prevent them from having deadly injuries during a race. So horses racing at Churchill Downs are now carrying some sensors that alert vets and trainers if something's going on. Not everyone has adopted the technology officially yet, but David Mattingly did stop by Churchill Downs to ask some questions about how the new tool could find a new place among horse racing's old traditions.
This is just an easy one to hang out with. She won't bother us misenchanted.
After a lifetime in horse racing, one thing trainer Dale Romans has never been able to do is see a life-threatening injury to a horse before it happens.
We used to always say that they just took a bad step. Well, science is showing us that most of those horses didn't just take a bad step. They had something underlying going into their catastrophic injury.
Romans is now relying on a sensor device by StrideSafe, one of multiple sensor companies being studied by HISA, the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority. During a race, the horse wears the tiny sensor, which collects 2,400 data points per second, 1,000 data points per stride. AI then digests all that information, not only identifying when a horse is at risk of catastrophic injury, but it can also direct a vet to a particular leg.
And furthermore, in some cases, we can send them to a particular joint
and to look for a particular type of injury.
The sensor does something humanly impossible. It examines a horse running at full speed, catching imperceptible variations in the horse's stride. In a sport known for its resistance to change, Romans was instantly impressed when one of his horses was flagged by the data. In a letter to the editor of Thoroughbred Daily News, Romans, who is also the president of the Kentucky Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association, said, "When a tool works this well to keep our horses safe, we owe it to them to pay attention."
The next generation coming up will wonder how we did it without it, and that's a good thing.
So thanks to David Mattingly for that update. New technology adopted into a traditional sport. We'll see how that all plays out. I do want to highlight, I believe, Gubby Records joining us, commenting on YouTube. Was trying to find some signal to show you all on some breaking news. So I'll see if I could find that a little later in the night. And if not, we'll of course have visuals for you if you join us for Wave News at 11. What I'm going to read is the Associated Press's update for apparently explosions in Iran's capital, as the government of Israel is claiming it did attack the country. So just reading the AP's reporting here, people in Tehran woke up Friday to the sound of a blast. State TV there in Iran acknowledged the blast. Israel's defense minister called it a, quote, special situation. And there's no immediate word on what was hit. The White House apparently didn't have a comment on the immediate aftermath of it all at some point tonight. As the explosions happened or were starting, President Trump was on the lawn of the White House. Unclear if he was informed. So this is an initial report from the Associated Press that came in. Let's say it's 8:51. It came in at 8:26. So we'll see if there's any visuals to share that with you all. We will, of course, do so. So coming up as we wrap up the hour, just a bunch of other interesting story headlines and tidbits for you all wanted to share. So we're going to take, again, another quick commercial break. We'll be right back with Wave Extra. Thanks, everyone, for sticking with us. 8:54 here on Wave Extra. Jose Sosaya manning the desk for you. I want to play perhaps just an update to the news if you've been following from around the world. Unfortunately, that awful, deadly plane crash in the Indian city of Ahmedabad. Here is the latest report we're able to funnel for you if you have missed any of that. So we'll play this report from the latest on the deadly crash in Ahmedabad.
I'm coming to you live from right outside the airport. This was a medical college. This was a hostel mess. And you can see right on the roof of the hostel mess, the tail end of the aircraft is still stuck. That is where the aircraft first crashed outside. This is not even, as the crow flies, it's not even half a mile. It might have taken, less than a minute and a half for the aircraft to reach here from the airport. There's also a first responder, somebody who operates the ambulance services. This is a medical college campus. I'll try and see if they can tell us, if you can tell us exactly what happened. What did you see?
Suddenly, we got a call at 1:41 minutes that something is crashed near our office, 200-300 meters away from our center hospital. Our supervisor and our team rushed to the scene, and they found that aeroplane is crashed. But we didn't identify that it is a passenger or someone other plane crashed. Then we found that it's the passenger plane.
And you rescued people from the hostel also, at least 25 people.
25 people rescued from the hostel.
Right. So that's an important point, because what we are talking about in terms of casualty is not just the crew members and the passengers of the aircraft, but also those who were undergraduate doctors inside this medical college. They were here to have their lunch. And I just want to quickly show you how far the debris have been flung apart. This is the second part of the plane, which is on the front side of the hostel building. And then just beyond that, perhaps you can see my video journalist zooming in on the remains of the luggage. That's all that remains of this air crash. All of these debris, just span that side. These are the debris outside the medical college hostel mess. And for the next half a kilometer or so, which is about 1/4 of a mile, this is all that you're seeing. Debris and parts of the Indian Airlines aircraft that crashed. And even as I'm speaking to you, maybe in the ambience you can hear, that's another aircraft which has taken off from the Ahmedabad airport. So the sound is quite loud because it's just outside the airport wall.
And right now, what you are seeing is a live picture that we have from our newsroom. It's issued closer to home. So if you've been following perhaps the discussion for the West End Opportunity Partnership to purchase the NIA Center, it's an ongoing live discussion for them to take Goodwill of Kentucky's offer to purchase the property and then lease it back to Goodwill so that a co-developer could then come in to build affordable housing. So perhaps as that vote is still playing out, we will let you know what the ultimate decision is for any kind of mission for more affordable housing out in West Louisville. So, and again, want to play you some other interesting tidbits, headlines and stories in case, things at home you might want to check in on. One is if you're someone, you always want to have your phone charger next to you, or this might apply as well if you're on the go a lot of the time and traveling. It is an issue with a portable charger. Apparently, more than 1 million power banks from the company Anchor, now they're being recalled, and they might look a little something like this if you play them. So you can see an image right there. So the Consumer Product Safety Commission now saying there's apparently a problem with the lithium-ion batteries that can cause this portable bank to overheat, potentially starting a fire, burn hazards. The company's gotten 19 reports that products like this either exploded or were set on fire or started a fire, resulting in a few minor injuries. Now, the recall only applies to this model, might be the A1263 model. They were sold online from the years 2016 through 2022. So you are advised, if you happen to have this particular power bank, contact the company Anchor if you would like that to be replaced. All right, moving on to another story before we wrap up for the hour. So what you're looking at right here is the first ever Starbucks Global Barista Champion. His name is Nobuki Shimode, a store manager in Japan. He won this title apparently in Las Vegas Wednesday, beating out 11 other baristas in a 3-day competition, challenging an original field. 84,000 people first submitted their application to try and win this out. Challenges included making the perfect latte art tulip, correctly guessing a coffee roast using only a sense of smell and taste. And in the finals, where Shimode won, contenders had 8 minutes to do several tasks, including crafting a signature beverage. So an interesting concept that now we have a global barista champion. And one more thing before we go, if you're a fan of history, you look at this and say, that's pretty cool. So here we have seen something about a French coin that won an auction. I'm going to see if I could find the details on that at some point. Okay. Well, we thought it was pretty cool. It seems these historic coins were found in France and they sold for over $3 million. So, yeah, pretty interesting to see remnants of the Roman Empire right there. Yeah, apologize there. I thought I had the prep for it there. Here it is. Okay, a historic gold coin sold for $3.5 million at a Paris auction this week. They're actually found hidden in the wall of a house in France after the previous owner died. Auction house said they were collected by someone who lived in a small French village until he died. Coin experts said the collection of more than 1,000 pieces took years to put together. Some of the coins date back centuries. They include some that I think we might have seen there. One of Van's profile on the left from the Kingdom of Macedonia from between 336 BC and 323 BC. The collection also includes a nearly complete series of coins used during the reigns of King Louis XIV, King Louis XV, and King Louis XVI. So if you're a fan of, ancient history, French history, that seems pretty cool to have discovered a literal treasure trove right there. And that is going to do it for us. It is 9:01. We appreciate you joining us for Wave Extra on this Thursday, June 12th. Make sure to join us for Wave News at 11 for the latest breaking stories, in-depth updates and headlines. Today we'll have Alina Noakes joining us as she looks into her particular piece, her investigation. So appreciate her time. Appreciate you all joining us on the different socials and on Wave Now. We will see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone.